Wow, it's been nearly a year since I last saw that intro. Holy smokes, I can't believe we still had that in the vault.
Still a banger.
It's still a banger. Mike Gould and Ryan Pike with you on this Friday afternoon in Calgary, Alberta. It's a beautiful day, Pike. The birds are chirping. It's been a little bit rainy, on and off, but really just a gorgeous day. There's no NHL hockey today for the first time in quite a while. The Vegas Golden Knights punched their ticket to the West Final last night. They're going to play the Colorado Avalanche. The Carolina Hurricanes are waiting to see who they'll play in the East Final. So not a whole lot going on today. So we figured it would be a good day to get down to the back burner. And with us on this Friday afternoon is none other than Daily Faceoff's own Stephen Ellis, prospect guru, editor over at DFO. And Stephen, we got to kick things off today. And first of all, thank you for joining us live from whatever Ontario locale you inhabit right now. I think you're heading up to London or something.
I'm honestly surprised we didn't catch him at a rink like last time we had him on.
catch him at like a Zellers or whatever. But Stephen, we gotta get your thoughts right away. Big news just dropped in the NHL sphere. A already prospect depleted team in the Vegas Golden Knights losing a second round pick for no good reason other than their own incompetence. What is your first takeaway from that crazy piece of news that just went down right as we were going live?
Let's not like they actually employ scouts. I'm not sure why, because they don't ever tend to do anything on draft day because they traded all their picks away and now they got creative and lost one this way. Obviously not talking to the media. It's not a great look. You know what the NHL policies are about that. Does it surprise me it came from John Tortorella? No, the guy that seems to hate the media until he needs a job, and then he's in the media and he's got a job all of a sudden. And in the end, I'm curious how I didn't look into how the NHL came to that conclusion, because it feels like such a random thing to take away a second round pick and then like $100,000. But at the same time, it's like rules are rules. You blew it. This was so avoidable. I don't know what they were doing, and that's that.
For those of you who are unfamiliar, so we're recording this on Friday. Friday live. You're recording. If you're viewing this on a podcast later, is in the distant past now. But the Vegas Golden Knights advanced to the conference final on Thursday evening via victory over the Anaheim Ducks of Anaheim. And following the game, John Tortorella declined to speak with the media, and apparently they did not open the room per NHL media regulations. So the NHL, literally moments ago, released basically $100,000 fine for John Tortorella, and they forfeit a their own second round pick in the 2026 upper deck NHL draft as a result of, quote, flagrant violations of the 2026 Stanley Cup playoff media regulations. The release also says, quote, the imposition of these penalties comes after previous warnings were issued to the club regarding their compliance with the media regulations and other associated policies. So it sounds like this was the culmination of a bunch of stuff that finally the league decided, okay, this is kind of embarrassing. Shout out to our colleague Jesse Granger over at The Athletic, who provided some context for it over in his social media channels regarding how bewildering some of their decisions were regarding media relations the last evening or so.
Well, and we've seen throughout the season a number of things in Vegas. I mean, obviously they got a lot of media scrutiny this year for a variety of different reasons. There was a lot around when they signed Carter Hart, and then there was stuff related to, I think Mark Lazarus got kicked out of a game or out of a press conference or something to that extent. So there's been a lot of back and forth between Vegas and the media, but also they give up a second round pick here. And that kind of ties into what we're discussing today with the Calgary Flames, because Vegas giving away a second round pick is nothing new. Giving away picks is nothing new. And
this might be the first time in a while they haven't given a first or a second to Calgary, though.
Exactly. So the Calgary Flames have been the recipients of numerous different picks from Vegas. They've already redeemed one, a third round pick on Kirill Zarubin back in 2024. But the Flames have Vegas's first round pick this year, which now can be no higher than 28th overall. It can only be 28th, 30th, or 31st after we saw Vegas advance last night. They have Vegas's first round pick as well in 2027 for Rasmus Andersson. And depending on how Vegas does in this conference final and then perhaps the cup final, they will get a pick from them in 2028 that could be either a first or a second round pick. So lots of picks coming to the Calgary Flames. But until we get into what the Flames might do at this year's draft, Stephen, we last chatted with you last week when the draft lottery went down. And we talked to you before the lottery, and we discussed a little bit the different permutations surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, we were sort of wondering what it would take for the Leafs to have to keep their pick. And the most likely outcome was a team ahead of the Leafs in the standings winning the lottery so that they would stay at 5 and keep their pick. We didn't really think too hard, at least, of the possibility of the Leafs moving up from 5 to 1. And now, with the way that everything is gone, with Toronto at 1, with San Jose moving up to 2, how does that change the likelihood of Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg being, as we have all expected them to be, picks 1 and 2 in this year's draft?
I think, with Toronto, you got to pick the best player available. You look at it and say, what's the one thing they really kind of missed this year? Someone who could do a lot of things that Mitch Marner used to do, which was setting up Austin Matthews for the shots, the one-timers, can be very valuable in the power play. And Gavin McKenna is not Mitch Marner. He's not this defensive stalwart. He has improved his defensive game and can potentially add that to his arsenal at the next level. And that's something I feel like if the Leafs take him, I think that's something where they'll make that a focus for next year. It's like, okay, you know what? You're going to be a big part of the top 6. We don't need you to be this 80-point guy right away. Just go out there and focus on rounding your game out. I think that's where he could become valuable. Ivar Stenberg is definitely more well-rounded at this point. I think also what's going to happen here is the World Championship and the fact that Stenberg's playing and is playing a prominent role already with Sweden. He's on the top line, as opposed to Gavin McKenna, who is not doing that right now. I think that's something where you're going to see some recency bias and maybe Stenberg's the guy. But at the same time, I think in general, if I'm Toronto, do you pick the guy who's more skilled or do you pick the guy who's more well-rounded? And I always like to bet high on skill, and that's where I would take McKenna. If they take Stenberg, I wouldn't be surprised. It's number 2 where things get interesting. And I don't think San Jose, again, I'm still, if you're picking top 2, I think you got to pick best player available. Do they see Chase Reed as a number 1 defenseman? If so, that's the answer. Do they see Carson Karls as a number 1 defenseman? He might be the answer. If not, passing on Stenberg is something I feel like would really kind of backfire in a way. But then at that point, I wonder, does Stenberg fall to 4? And that's a perfect fit for Chicago and what they need. So is it a lock that those two are going 1-2? Absolutely not. I think San Jose being number 2 really kind of shook things up more. But that's one where if he does fall to 4, that kind of shakes up things for Calgary and everybody around the 5 to 9 range. What happens then?
I want to let Pike get in a word here, but before I do, to me, the Sharks moving up to 2 feels like as much of a pivot point in the draft as when Columbus was number 3 in 2016. And everybody thought Jesse Puljujärvi was the guy, and then they take Pierre-Luc Dubois and everything falls out of sync. And so I'm so interested to see how that impacts things. And you mentioned the World Championships, Stephen, and Canada played Sweden today. We saw after that game, which Canada won 5-3, Sidney Crosby was interviewed right after Viggo Bjork, and he had some very positive things to say about the young Swede center, sort of saying that he looked confident with the puck, played very well. It's not easy to be a young player in the tournament, and he looked good out there. How is this World Championship, and how are the remaining games left to play at various levels this season going to impact how the order shakes out from here on out?
I think it's the fact that you've got guys like Oliver Murnieks. I know that's one that's not going to be a first-round pick, but that's a guy who's going to be playing for Latvia, and I think he's very important because he had a very good U18s. There were reports that he was injured during the season. He went from a guy that was a potential top 15 pick to is he even going to be taken in the second round? That's a player I could see flying up the rankings if he ends up having a really good tournament for Latvia, and we do expect him to be a big part of that team. He has already looked good playing against older competition with the senior team. When it comes to Stenberg and Bjork, I don't think a bad tournament is going to hurt Stenberg's status here. I think in general, the fact is Sweden, while they are a medal contender, they are also a very young team and a team that didn't even put Anton Frundell in the lineup today. That's something where it's a very young team. They cut some guys with NHL experience to bring guys like Bjork and Stenberg and try to milk those 2 guys as much as possible. I think it's going to be interesting to see, if they do stay on the top line. I think Bjork's got maybe the most to gain of those 2 guys. I think with him, there are people who think he can go number 3. There are people who can go number 4. Maybe he goes number 6 to Calgary. He's a centerman that's just fearless. Yeah, he's small, but it's clearly not been an issue for him. And he told us at the World Juniors that the guy he really tries to match his game after is Sidney Crosby. And then when Sidney Crosby goes out of his way to just talk about how big of a player he is, how tough of a guy he was to go up against tonight, I think that really kind of shows you the level of respect that Bjork's already getting. The fact that he was a number one center in the second half in the top Swedish hockey league, that's impressive. And I think that that's something where we're going to hear a lot of conversations. If he looked really good today, he showed he was fearless. If he continues to play like he did in game one, I could see him really pushing himself into that conversation. But again, there's going to be some recency bias because Caleb Malhotra, you asked everybody a week ago, he was the clear number one center for most people. Well, he's going to go a month and a half before the draft without playing, basically. That's something where you look at Bjork being able to do this right now is going to push him up. You just got to go and look at who's going to be the better player long term and not who is the better player for a couple games a few weeks before the draft.
I believe our friends in Vancouver would say that Viggo Bjork, quote, has that dog in him. I don't know if they still use the dog rankings out there, but I mean, he's looking at the general consensus rankings. You know, I basically just look at the rankings that came out. You know, anyone who came out with public rankings in April, May, you know, basically dating back to March, and it seems McKenna and Stenberg 1A, 1B, a little bit of separation there, then a bit of a gap. Then it seems like the public rankings have Reed, Verhoff, Malhotra, who is rapidly, he was, you know, if we did this exercise a month and a half ago, he was in the teens somewhere, and now he's like 5th, 6th. And then when the Calgary Flames pick, they have Albert Smits, Carson Karls, and Viggo Bjork, all of whom seem to meet the Flames' needs in different ways. And in your mind, is there a lot of separation? Obviously, different players, different play styles and such. Is there a lot of separation between those three gentlemen, Smits, Karls, and Bjork for you?
I'd say, like, you look at Smits, he's more of a defensive defenseman. I feel like we saw some really solid numbers earlier in the year in Finland, but that really wasn't his game. I think he was playing to a high and was getting all these opportunities, but that's not a guy that we expect to put up, you know, like he's compared to Moritz Seider in a lot of ways. And I see that from his defensive game, but I don't see it from an offensive perspective. And I think that's something where you're not going to get too excited about him. I think with Carson, you know, if you're looking at Carson Karls, I think he's a guy who's really smart. He's built very strong, but doesn't necessarily go out there and use his physical play too much. And I feel like that's something, once he figures out how to really knock guys down, he's going to be a terrifying player to play against. I wouldn't be surprised if he was the first defenseman off the board, because there are a lot of scouts who like him more than Chase Reed. And then there's Bjork. I feel like the fact that it's one thing to go out there and play really good or play really well against, you know, players in the SHL. But to go out there and he was winning battles against guys like Crosby and Ryan O'Reilly and Evan Bouchard tonight. Like, those are pretty damn good players. Stanley Cup winners, you know, guy that was in the conversation for the Norris this year. I think that's something where you're looking at this and saying, like, if I think I'd be ranking Carson Karls first there, Bjork second, Smits third in that group, but I do think it's all really tight. And
do you think this year, you know, I think my esteemed colleague here referenced the 2016 draft, and, you know, the Flames have been pretty adamant that they were not expecting Matthew Tkachuk to follow them at 6. They were expecting the order to go very much the way the rest of us did. And then a curveball got thrown, and all of a sudden they got a franchise-altering player just sort of falling to them at 6. Do you feel like I guess the dynamics of this year's class, where there's so much difference of opinion, and not so much like people think this player is bad, this player is good, but just in terms of difference of opinion, in terms of who is the best player for team wise needs at whatever spot, that we could see a bit of chaos in the top 5 or 6?
Yeah, like, I think, you know, if you're looking at a potential bounce back candidate, Tynan Lawrence, a guy that some people thought could be the first guy off the board heading into Christmas, and now we're talking about most people having him outside the top 10. If he spends a full year at Boston University, he's healthy and explodes offensively and kind of meets the level that a lot of people expected him to, all of a sudden does he become the best value pick? And teams are kind of hoping, like, oh, maybe we could bank on that early. Maybe someone goes for Ethan Belchitz, who probably would have looked good in the OHL playoffs had he not got hurt. And he's just this physical beast. The chaos conductor is what I call him. He's out there trying to just terrorize everybody. Could he get drafted high because he's this big forward that nobody knows how to contain? Does a team look at the fact that Lane Hudson has been so good this year and say, you know what, dude, who's also a good skater and loves the puck and has a lot of skill? Ryan Lynn. Maybe we take a chance on him. I think when you look at all that, that's where things get really interesting. And any of those three players, I think, could really shake up the draft. I don't know if like Vigo Bjork going third's a big shakeup, because I do think that there's not a ton of separation from like third to 6th or 7th, like we were just talking about. But if any of those guys like Lawrence Belchitz or Ryan Lynn kind of go into that top 5 or top 6, that's where things get really fun.
And one last weird one for me. You mentioned Lawrence, and I've liked what I've seen from him. I haven't seen as much as I wanted to see of him. I'm thinking the parallel maybe because we're in Western Canada and we're big dub guys in this building. When I think of Lawrence, I think of, man, Caden Lindstrom when he was healthy. Damn, really great player. But since he had the injury trouble he hasn't really gotten the traction that I think anyone, especially Columbus, would have hoped he would. Do you think maybe, obviously recency bias with a prominent player going early and having those kind of injury issues, do you think that would cause any kind of trepidation on the part of teams? Or do you think it's sort of different situations, different players, and, maybe teams look at Lindstrom's situation and specifically go, well, that's a specific problem that he's dealing with, but Lawrence is in a different situation?
I think it's different. I think when you look at Lawrence, like he did show a lot of signs of like, wow, okay, like he played pretty well near the end of the NCAA season. Like he did play his best hockey right at the end. And I will also point out that he didn't look that great, but he played on a Boston University team that just didn't have a ton of weapons out there. And I think that is something you got to take into account here, where like BU will be a better team next year and they'll have a lot more weapons. And I think he's going to be able to play a big role in that. And I think that that's something where that's good. I think when you look at Lidstrom, he missed too much time. Like he missed like half his draft year, and then he missed essentially his whole draft plus 1 season. With Lawrence, he missed a few months. He came back and was dominant in the USHL. For me, I think his situation is not necessarily injury related, but more great at the link-up, misses the start of the USHL season, plays great, probably 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody. Didn't end up mattering because he left, but then he just didn't get comfortable joining a program mid-season, and it wasn't a good program to begin with. Like if he went to, University of Michigan, I think we're talking about a different situation here. But he went to Boston University where they didn't have a ton of weapons. I feel like that's just the guy that's going to be primed for a bounce back situation, as opposed to Lindstrom, who I still feel like probably should have been in the WHL this year. And given, how good Medicine Hat was this year, like he would have been huge for that team. And instead, trying to make up for lost time against older competition and not playing as much, I feel like that really kind of hurt him.
I want to get in some discussion about current Flames prospects in a little bit, but I do have one more question. One more topic I just think merits discussing about the 25 or the 26 draft rather. And it kind of reminds me of the last time the Flames were close to this situation when they had the 9 pick in 24, and everybody looked at that draft class as having so many defensemen on the same sort of level, just sort of different flavors. It's like you're at an ice cream shop and you can pick what flavor you want. And it kind of surprised people when, for example, Carter Yakimchuk went ahead of Zane Parekh, or when Anton Sileyev went ahead of Zeev Boyum. And is it something where this year, depending on where things shake out, like, I kind of think of Yakimchuk when I see what Daxon Rudolph is doing in this year's WHL playoffs. So where he has 27 points already in 18 games with PA. Are we maybe going to see, just with the number of defensemen out there, a situation where the pre-draft rankings, the consensus, what have you, maybe the sexier point-producing defensemen on paper, maybe get supplanted at a certain stage, depending on what teams are there, by the more NHL-ready types, the Levshinovs, the Sileyevs, the Yakimchuks? Is that something you can sort of see happening with this year with the Smitzes and the Rudolphs maybe, and the other guys who are out there?
Yeah, I'd say like Smits is probably the closest to being NHL ready. And I feel like that's something where he could realistically be a third pairing NHL defenseman, depending on the team next year, and like immediately make an impact. But I just don't see the high end. I don't see the top ceiling. I don't see the guy being a super strong top pairing defenseman as you would with some of these other guys. But if you're San Jose, you're looking at potentially making the playoffs next year, right? Or if you're Florida, a team that I know they drafted a little bit later in the first round, but like that could be a really attractive option because you're saying like, okay, like we expect to be good again next year. let's go out there and try and get someone who could help us immediately as opposed to waiting a few years or might get pushed back due to our timelines. That being said, I don't know how many defensemen we're talking about here being truly like ready to go. I think with Daxon Rudolph, great NCAA season. I know a lot of scouts are still worried about his own zone play and that he maybe sacrifices that a bit to be a bit more flashy with the puck. But then you go out there and you look at Chase Reed and, very interesting all-around guy. You'll go look at Keen Verhoff. I think another year in college is absolutely no matter what the move he's got to take, because it feels like his game is a little bit flawed in a lot of areas or in some areas, but then the upside there is still very big. I'd say he's probably got the most upside. So you're balancing, readiness, floor, and upside. And I think that's where a guy like Chase Reed's getting the number one talk there for a defenseman, because it feels like he's kind of like the floor's high. Like he's probably going to be at least a second pairing defenseman. But then he could play the power play. He could be the penalty kill. He's got size. He's got everything you expect to go out there and translate very well to the next level. And I think that's something where him or in my opinion, Carson Carls are probably going to be the two guys that are taking out the top, because they've got the upside, but also I just feel like their defensive game's at a point where you're not going to be worried about them.
We've got about 10 more minutes with you, Steven. So I just wanted to sort of transition a little bit in some of the guys the Flames already have, because we'll have lots of opportunities the next little while. I am really trying to lock down our friend Cami Kepke for one of these shows to do some in-depth WHL stuff, because I know we got lots to get into as it pertains to the Rudolphs and the Ryan Linds and what have you. I'm super excited for that.
I'm a Ben McBeth guy myself.
Ben McBeth, exactly. There's so many really good ones. But with the guys the Flames already have, we have spent so much time over the last 12, 24 months talking about Cole Reshny and Cullen Potter and Zane Parekh and Hunter Brestevich and what have you. I want to start today by talking about maybe a prospect who has flown a little under the radar, but was recently signed by the Flames to an ELC, and that's Theo Stockselius, and who just had an excellent run in the playoffs with your Garden in the U20 division over in Sweden. 20 points in 11 games, including 9 goals.
The most valuable player in that playoff tournament.
That's right. And so Stockselius now is set to return in all likelihood to Sweden next year for another season with your Garden, likely in the Swedish league. But there's a possibility here. He's an 07 birthday. Maybe in the future, he's a guy who plays for the Hitmen. Maybe in the future, we see him come and join the Calgary Wranglers before too long. What kind of upside does this guy have? Because I know it's easy to sort of put second round picks, especially ones who aren't in North America, out of sight, out of mind. And there are some other players sort of picked around him who, maybe on preliminary draft boards might have been ranked a little bit higher. But what should Flames fans be expecting when Stockselius does come over?
Well, I think when you look at him in particular, it's like you talk to some scouts who wouldn't have him as a top 10 prospect on the Flames system, pretty much at any point this season. It shows you the depth that this team really has. Like Calgary does have one of the best prospect pools in hockey, assuming we're still all considering Zane Parekh to be a prospect. And I think when you look at Stockselius, it's like he's the one thing that was really holding him back in his draft year was his skating. He wasn't very quick. He wasn't very mobile, but it feels like that's less of a problem. Watching him play Swedish U20 competition, he didn't lose many battles out there. He's very strong. He hits hard. He's very smart. He's one of the smarter guys, I think, that were kind of in that heading into the draft as a second, third, fourth round type prospect. It felt like he was a guy that was who thought the game at a high level and just didn't have the speed to really kind of capitalize on that. But watching him play against U20 competition the last 2 years, like he's shown that he can handle that very well. He can physically dominate players out there. I feel like if he can really work on his pace, that's something where you look at this and say, yeah, I feel very confident about him being a bottom 6 player. That being said, I think even without really adding a bit more of that speed, I feel like the fact that he's got that physicality to him, he's out there, he can shoot from anywhere, he's a good playmaker. And again, the hockey sense, like scouts say that it always feels like he's kind of one step ahead of people in situations where not necessarily having to play at speed, but whether it be the power play at the U20 level or things in the penalty kill. He's always in the right spot at the right time. He's able to capitalize on that. I feel like that's something where I do really like him as a potential fourth line guy who can maybe be an energy player who will hit hard and be difficult to play against. And that's what you're looking for when you're, not everyone's going to go out there and be a Zane Parekh level player, but when you're picking somebody in the second round or the third round, you're looking for guys who are going to be able to play in the NHL. And it feels like Stockselius has kind of got everything going for him. He's got that 6'3" frame. He is defensively responsible. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes with the puck. I feel like there's a very safe road for him to become an NHL player.
Well, it's funny to me because the Flames have generally done quite well with their first round picks, with a few exceptions.
Lately.
Even before that, though, like they generally got players with them, even if they weren't stars. Like Chuck Kobasu was a player, Eric Nystrom was a player. They're maybe not guys who you want to get in the first round. There may be guys you'd rather get in the second or third round. They had a tough run of like 3 years there under Daryl, but after that, they generally did okay. Like at minimum, it was sort of Sven Baertschi types who hung around for a bit. But then, for a long time there, it was Monahan and Bennett and Tkachuk and Valimaki should have been more. But in any event, they've done generally well. They've done horribly in the second round.
They very rarely use second round picks.
Well, even then, it's maybe something that flies a little bit under the radar because aside from Rasmus Andersson, over the last quarter century, it is real tough sledding in the second round for the Calgary Flames. And this is a team that has 4 second round picks this year, has 2 in each of the following 2 drafts after that. And if you go back the last quarter century, here's the exhaustive list. Andrei Teratukin, Andrei Medvedev, Brian McConnell, Tim Ramholt, who played 1 NHL shift.
He played 90 seconds.
That's right. Mitch Wall. And then they didn't make another one until Marcus Granlund and Tyler Wotherspoon, the 2 second-round picks they got for Tim Erickson.
They were guys.
Patrick Seeloff, who scored 2 goals in 2 NHL games.
Goal per game.
John Gillies, who played for the Arizona Coyotes. And then they didn't draft again in the second round until Mason McDonald and Hunter Smith. And then it's Rasmus Andersson, legit NHL star defenseman.
Shillington.
Oliver Shillington, who played a couple hundred NHL games. Tyler Parsons, who never played. Dylan Dubé, the less said about him, the better. And then a couple more years without a second-round pick entirely. Then you get to Yan Kuznetsov, who is fine. He's like a bottom-pairing NHL defenseman. Might be more, but probably a bottom-pairing NHL defenseman. William Stromgren, 3 NHL games. They took him over Logan Stankoven. Topi Ronnie, less said about him, the better. They took him over Lane Hudson. Etienne Morin, we'll see. Andrew Basha, we'll see. Jacob Battaglia, already traded. And then Theo Stockselius. Like, that's over 25 years. That's abysmal. I'm sorry. Like, you got to be better than that in the second round. And so, but I also just want to say, Steven, like, if we're talking late first rounders this year, the Flames do already have a late first rounder this year. They need, they've got a good prospect pool. They still need kind of everything. If the Flames, for example, were to package some of those second round picks, who are guys in the late 20s, early 30s that you like as, just unique little fits or guys who are maybe worthy, meriting a little bit more discussion?
I think Maddox Dejanay is an interesting one. His dad, Pierre, was drafted twice by the New Jersey Devils. That's some very interesting asset management to draft the same guy 2 years after you previously drafted him. But he's a guy that you go watch his highlights. He's a reverse hit machine. He loves to just go out there and just destroy guys. He's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's a decent skater. He's not the fastest skater. He does need to work on adding that, but we've seen a lot of growth from him. Like he was fine in the QMJHL in the first half, and then something around Christmas, he's like one of the best guys in the league, and that's exciting. I think you can look at someone like Jack Hextall. I think some people think he can go late first, some maybe early second. It just feels like he's a safe guy as like a number 3 center. You're looking at a guy who's not going to be flashy, not going to put up 100 points, but he's going to be reliable. He's going to get the job done, and he's going to play a good 200-foot game. I think you can look at Ryan Rubrick is very interesting. One of the more skilled shooters I've seen in a long time, but the work ethic is just not there consistently. And I think that's something where you go and watch him. I remember him scoring a bar down goal in a tournament from his own zone. It was an empty netter, but that was still an impressive shot. And you could tell this guy really wanted to shoot the puck a lot. And he didn't get exceptional status. That was something that looked like he was going to try and get in the OHL, didn't get it. And he was just dominant in his own age group, but it didn't look like he tried half the time. And I feel like that's something where if he put his full effort out there, he's a competitive guy who can go out there and use his frame and shoot from everywhere and be very effective. He probably is going to fall in the second round, but he was a guy that had top 10 potential heading into November, December. And I think that's something where if you can land that guy, you're swinging a bit, but you're swinging on the upside. And I feel like when it comes to something like the second round in particular, try and get someone who matches an NHL archetype and try and just go out there and get a guy who's going to play in the NHL. Take those wild swings for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. And that's where you can go out there and find the value. I know I'm saying that when I'm talking about a guy who I'm saying take a swing on this guy potentially late in the 1st round, 2nd round, whenever you get a chance for him. But I still see a lot of upside there. And I think part of that is it's not a super deep draft. Like you're picking up 40. Like if you have the 40th pick, you're like, there's nobody I really love at this spot.
I'm glad you mentioned just before. I'm going to let you go, Pike, but I'm glad you mentioned Ryan Rubrek. I just want to mention this very quickly. I have seen this season Ryan Rubrek of the Niagara Ice Dogs, I think, be ranked as high as 4th overall and ranked as low as 80th from different people. I think Chris Peters had him at 4. I think in his last ratings, I think Pronman had him at 80, which is crazy.
And you mentioned big swings. And in this market, we'd be remiss if we did not put you on the spot. Given where the Flames are at and given their absolute slew of picks in the 2nd round, particularly, if you're with him, if you're Craig Conroy and he says, Steven, should I trade up into the 1st round and get 2 picks and take both rucks? Would you do it?
Honestly, there's like after like pick like 15, I just don't love this draft. Like it's something where you're just like, I don't know. Is this the year to really move up? If maybe there's going to be someone you really get excited about, but no, I don't really know if there's worth. Just keep the quantity and just do as much with those picks as you can. Just keep building it out. Those are going to be trade assets down the line. I don't think moving up is really the most exciting thing in this year's draft.
Wow.
But twins.
Yeah. You might be, depending on who you talk to, you might be able to do it with the picks you already have without trading for them.
Wow.
So some don't think Marcus is going to go in the 1st round.
Well, Steven, we appreciate it. We know you have a heart out. We should leave on more of a positive note, though. Mark Jankowski, 2 years, $1.85 million, Carolina Hurricanes. Steal of the playoffs?
Sure. Yeah, legitimately, though. Really good start to that to the playoffs, and it's been really fun to watch kind of what Carolina's been able to do, just absolutely annihilating everybody out there. Like that's a team I never trust in the playoffs. I didn't trust Freddie Anderson. I didn't trust Taylor Hall. I didn't trust their depth, and look what they're doing right now, right? Like is it going to be super easy in the Eastern Conference Final? I don't think so. I have in my latest predictions for the 2nd round, I have Montreal taking them to 6 games and Carolina winning. If it's Buffalo, I think it's going to be 5 games for Carolina. But hey, just get it done now, guys. You guys have like teased everybody for years. Just get it done.
Feels like the path is finally open. Hey, Steven, we appreciate your time. What were you going to do after this?
I'm actually going. I got my own hockey game to play, but then I'm heading out to a little place no one's ever heard of called Bowmanville, Ontario, to go work. To partly go camp, but also mostly because I'm working for a NASCAR Canadian team. So cheer on Alex Guinnett if you get a chance to watch the race this weekend. It's going to be fun, legitimate shot at winning that race, and I'll be in turn 5 saying clear, and hopefully that's all I need to say.
I figured you were going to go like watch Div 5 Nicaragua against Guyana or something, or maybe play for one of those 2 teams. But hey, you know what? We appreciate it, Steve. Have a great weekend, long weekend, and enjoy your NASCAR race.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
That is Steven Ellis, Daily Faceoff's prospect guru and
a true Renaissance man. He is a noted ball hockey goalie extraordinaire who regularly posts some sweet pad stacks on in the social medias.
Oh my goodness.
He is apparently a racing aficionado and working doing some NASCAR Canada stuff. He must have the weirdest resume in the world, and that's coming from someone who also has a very weird resume. Just a good dude. Now that he's off the air, we can speak ill of him, but we have nothing ill to say of Steven Ellis. He's just a valued colleague and a great dude.
He has lived many lives, and he will live many more. He's a good guy. And you know what? I don't want to out Steven too much here, but he did let slip before we went on air that he has been approached to try out for multiple national ball hockey federations. Can you believe that?
That's a big deal.
Yeah, he's legit. Like that's a guy,
it's a tough gig.
Well, yeah, like that. Some hockey writers get flack for never playing the game. Steven plays the game in ways that people can't even comprehend that he plays the game.
And let's also, you mentioned it. Let's give a shout out to 21st overall pick in the 2012 draft, Mark Jankowski.
Of course.
I'll say this for Mark: good kid, good family, works hard. If the Flames general manager at the time had not felt the need to oversell the pick, I think Jankowski would have had a smoother path through hockey. But I mean, he's made his living honestly. I think this is one of the few. He's actually got a multi-year deal. He's made his way through hockey primarily the Joel Hanley way, with a series of short-term contracts. But he consistently if he drops down to the A, consistently finds a way back to big clubs. He's a guy who's he's a pro's pro. He's made his living the hard way, and 14 years after he was a first-round pick, he is in the Final Four and has a pretty decent chance of playing for Stanley Cup this year.
Well, this is the thing. It's not quite as pronounced as Joel Hanley, where Joel Hanley only signed his first $1 million NHL contract, and I'm talking million per year plus, I think when he was 34.
His first one-way wasn't until he was 30.
But this is Mark Jankowski's his richest contract ever, 1.85 times 2. He hasn't made more than $1 million a season since his first post ELC contract with the Flames, if you'll remember. I mean, talk about a turn of events. Good for Janko.
482 NHL games and 68 this year, 21 points. 21 points, I believe, is his third highest single season output. He hit double digits in goals for the fourth time in his career. He is not someone you're going to put on your first line necessarily, but it's nice to see guys who are obviously really passionate about what they do and pretty skilled, but maybe you've hit their ceiling, but find a way to make themselves valuable to teams. So yeah, good for him.
Janks can be on my team any day. Pike. Hey, that was a good conversation with Steven. I'm glad we're doing this show again. We got some good stuff planned. We want to hear from you guys in the chat. I wasn't joking. I really want to do a show with Cammie. I sort of floated it to her. We're going to lock something down. But there's so many good WHL players in this year's draft. Obviously, we touched a little bit on Carson Karls, Daxon Rudolph, the Rucks, Mathis Preston, JP Hurlburt, Ryan Lynn, of course, a couple.
JP Hurlburt's an amazing hockey name, by the way.
Good.
He sounds like he'd be like the sheriff of like some like 2-bit town where he's like
Squire Hurlburt.
Noted Sheriff JP Hurlburt had to run me out of town.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, a couple ex-WHLers as well, and Gavin McKenna and Keaton Verhoff. So lots to talk about there. We're super excited to hopefully get her on. I've reached out to Byron Bader. We're going to do another chat with Bader. We did one of those last year, and I think it was a lot of fun. Bader, if you'll recall, last year had Anton Frundell at number 1 in his ranking. And Frundell, I mean, he had a really good finish to the season with the Chicago Blackhawks after coming over from Djurgården, 9 points in 12 games, could be a top Calder candidate next season. Of course, maybe not Matthew Schaefer, but of course, Schaefer was a hard one to model out when he played so little in his draft year, right, with the Erie Otters. So we'll cut Bader a bit of slack on that one. I'm excited to see what the model looks like, because that's going to be coming out soon. The top 32, as I understand it. He's put out his team strength rankings, though.
Ooh, and I believe, much like when Scott Wheeler put out his prospect pool rankings,
number 3.
That's consensus. Right. And so Montreal and San Jose. San Jose's number 1, Montreal's number 2 on Bader's rankings. On Wheeler's rankings, looking at slightly different things. I think it was San Jose 1, Chicago 2. So regardless, if you're consistently top 3 on a couple of very smart guys' rankings, that means you're drafting a lot and drafting good players by the sounds of it.
Now, I do want to make a point here that I've seen made by a couple folks on social media, and I want to amplify it here, because with Vegas now losing their 2026 second round pick, and we do want to emphasize that Vegas has been granted an opportunity to appeal this decision, which would be held in person next week in New York. I like that the NHL went as far as to preemptively schedule where and when it would take place, because they know Vegas will appeal. After
Dennis Weidman, I'm all appealed out.
But for the time being, Calgary, in essence, has 5 second round picks in this year's draft.
Because they own the Vancouver
Canucks pick, which is the very first pick in the 3rd round of the 2026 NHL draft. So assuming that Vegas remains without that pick, or at least that they drop it or maybe push it forward or something like that.
The official NHL stance is they will simply just bow their heads in respectful silence, much like they did the year that Arizona lost their first.
And they never got it back.
Yeah, so I believe that was the year that they drafted
Gunther.
It was the year that the Flames. It was 2020.
It was the year that
Coronado went. It
was 21. Oh
yeah.
So I actually shameless plug. I just did a retrospective on John Chayka's GM tenure over at Daily Faceoff. I called it The Good, the Bad, and the Coyote Ugly, a retrospective. And there were good things.
Yeah,
there
were
reference
bad things. 30-year-old movie, too.
Yeah, 30-year-olds, more like a 70-year-old movie. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Oh, come on.
Coyote Ugly?
Well, sure. But yeah, I mean, that was the Coyotes giving up a second-round pick in 2020 because they'd already traded their first for Taylor Hall. And then their first in 21, which they eventually recouped in a way by trading Ekman Larson to Vancouver and getting Gunther with that pick. So, yeah, it's always interesting to see teams forfeit these picks. Of course, we also saw the Ottawa Senators temporarily forfeit a pick in the first round of this year's draft, which ended up not being that much of a punishment. They essentially moved down from, I think, 18 to 32.
And I believe the rationale for that was they changed ownerships, and then the appeal was successful of it wasn't us, it was the other guys. And apparently that was enough. So they're drafting 32nd. So traditionally, when Mike and I both on social discussed that the Stanley Cup winner will only draft 31st this year instead of 32nd.
That's right.
It's because they pushed Ottawa's pick to the very end of the first round as punishment. So they'll draft like 10 spots later than they usually would, which I guess.
I do just want to say something as it pertains to the Calgary Flames' second first-round pick this year from Vegas for Noah Hannafin. I am curious to see how this plays out because as far as I know, if Montreal wins their series against Buffalo, okay, and then if Montreal loses in the East Final and Vegas loses in the West Final, okay, if those two teams make it to the conference finals and then lose.
It's based on points.
I know it's based on points. Still, I don't remember it ever happening where the lower ranked of the two conference finals losers was a division winner.
It's rare. It might be back in the days of the Southeast Division.
Super weird. Like this. Well, and this is also something I discovered today. Another humble brag, a post. What am I? A boost, self promo,
self gloss.
Yeah, something like that.
Just say your words.
This year in the West Final is the first time ever under the current NHL format where it's the two division winners facing off in the West Final. It's never happened before. It's the Pacific winner and the Central winner.
It's the Western Conference version of the President's Trophy curse.
Well, and they're separated by 26 points. Like it's crazy. Vegas finished the year with 95 points, fewer than the Flames had last year, and Colorado 121. Like it's wild.
It is kind of fun that there's three of the four the teams have all punched their tickets to the conference finals. All have prominent former Flames on them.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they're all division winners, which is also true
so far.
And it could be all four,
unless Montreal, Canada's last hope, wins.
I mean, they sing the Canadian anthem at both those teams' games.
I just think it's fun that Brett Kulak goes back to the conference finals.
It's true.
I mean, if you look back on Brett Kulak's illustrious National League career, he spends a lot of time in the playoffs.
Well, and also this came out from Sportsnet stats yesterday. There is guaranteed for the 46th consecutive year to be a teammate of Jaromir Jagr's in the Stanley Cup final. Brett Kulak, of course, as we know, assisted on Jaromir Jagr's last NHL goal with the Calgary Flames.
As did Johnny
Gaudreau. That's right. And so, of course, he plays for Colorado. And Vegas has two former teammates of Jaromir Jagr's in Rasmus Andersson and Riley Smith.
And we'd be remiss if we did not plug the Gaudreau
the 5K.
The Gaudreau 5K. Mm-hmm. You can do it remotely. Sign up. You can still sign up. The weather might be kind of grungy in Calgary, but muscle through it and then reward yourself with some sort of a beverage.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was great to talk to Steven. There's other stuff that's on the docket. I mean, I wanted to chat with Steven a little bit, maybe about the Memorial Cup, but I sort of mentioned, we discussed it a little bit off mic. Not a lot of relevant stuff in the Memorial Cup this year. I mean, We'll see PA maybe get through, take on.
They might get knocked out today,
but they might get knocked out today by Everett. So
I don't see Everett blowing a 3-1 lead.
I don't think so either. And Everett's PA rather has got sort of the most relevant 26 draft prospect in Rudolph. I mean, we're going to see Landon DuPont in all likelihood, but that's a matter for 2027. So we'll see how it all shakes out. The big stuff right now, of course, is the Worlds, and we saw earlier today. As we mentioned on while Steven was here, Canada beating Sweden 5-3. No points in that game for Stenberg or for Viggo Bjork, but they both played more than 18 minutes, nearly 19 minutes each. Viggo Bjork actually played more than Stenberg in this game. He beat him by 3 seconds, 18:58, the second most of any Swedish forward, behind only Lucas Raymond, who you would expect to play that much. But Viggo Bjork played more in this game than guys like Jacob Silverberg, who is still playing internationally, even though I don't think he's with the Ducks anymore. Oscar Sundqvist, Emil Heinemann, remember him? Simon Holmstrom, Linus Karlsson. These are all NHL players. So it's pretty crazy to see a couple young players who haven't even been drafted yet playing second and third most of any Swedish forward in this game. For Canada, it was Tavares, O'Reilly, Dylan Holloway, Connor Brown, and Dylan Cousins scoring the goals. So not a lot of youth on that side. But in any event, some really interesting stuff. We also saw Switzerland beat the United States today. We saw Matt Coronado play for Team USA in that game. Was held without a point in 17:09 of ice time. Did we see Zach Whitecloud play for Team Canada? I think we did.
Third pair.
Yeah, that's right.
He was playing with beloved Edmonton Oilers defenseman
Darnell Nurse. That's right. Nurse had 2 assists. Whitecloud had 2 penalty minutes, so that went probably just fine. Some really good stuff that we're going to see at the Worlds going forward. We also recently saw this just came out a couple days ago on a rival show or a different show, I suppose. But Flames general manager Craig Conroy with a pretty wide-ranging interview on the Missing Curfew show, talking about a lot of interesting topics. And I think the biggest thing that we have seen from Craig Conroy, and that extends into the moves that he has made, the pieces that he has gotten. I mean, has he made a savvier deal than that Rasmus Andersson deal with the Vegas Golden Knights? Not just as far as the assets that he comes away with, knowing that he was in a bind, but also getting Zach Whitecloud out of that deal. I mean, it feels like in the weeks since we have last been on the air, Zach Whitecloud has made 30 community appearances.
He's probably making community appearances in
right
between
now.
World Championship games. I would put Ryan Strome for his 7th up there. They're going to recoup that pick,
I would say.
But I mean, we talk about you can't have a team. How do we say this without saying disparaging things about our neighbors to the north? You have to have adults on your team. It's kind of unfair to the kids to put a bunch of kids in their 20s. Like you probably don't want a 20-year-old defenseman, 21-year-old defenseman to single someone out being your captain, not because he's not capable of doing it, but because it seems kind of unfair to put him in a situation where he has to navigate those, weird locker room situations like Vancouver experienced. You probably want to have some veterans to insulate your players socially, environmentally, on the ice in tough game situations, various levels. And I think if you look at the people the Flames have brought in, Ryan Strome, in our limited experiences with him, very thoughtful, very articulate, seems to, he's been through these type of experiences in a lot of different markets, Edmonton, the Islanders, Chicago, Anaheim. I don't think it was in Chicago. That's a different Strome. Was it the right Strome?
So Ryan Strome has played for the Islanders, the Rangers.
The Rangers were kind of bad when he was there too.
I know they went to the East Final.
Yeah,
but the Ducks and the Oilers were really bad.
So 3 out of 4 places he's been, helping a team move out of the basement, so to speak.
Yeah.
So he gets it.
The Rangers were moving up when
they started moving up.
Yeah. Because I think they drafted Lafreniere when he was there.
Yeah. So that still means they're pretty bad that one year.
Yeah.
So suffice to say, like you need guys who sort of get it and understand what the roles are and understand, can role model those kind of behaviors for your young guys, so that your young guys, they can understand, they can take ownership of things, they can move up. And I'll say this, the Flames have a bunch of guys that when you speak to the young guys, they go out of their way to say, man, When we spoke with Zane Perek prior to exits, he spoke at some length about how much playing with first Joel Hanley and then Zach Whitecloud helped him. And then we spoke to Zach Whitecloud in exits. He probably gave us like a 3-minute answer on Zane Perek's development. And so that is a long way of saying I have a lot of time for Zach Whitecloud because he cares with a capital C, cares. And he seems to be the type of guy that will, go do what he can and help make your team better.
You know what? I think the single biggest difference from the start of the 25-26 season and the end of it was just that the Flames ended up sending away certain players and bringing in certain players. And by the end of the season, we saw players being more deferential to players like Zane Perek. Whereas, I think at the start of the year, and it's no fault to anybody, but there were just players who were used to being deferred to. More so guys like Nazem Kadri and Huberdeau in the lineup and Weegar in the lineup and Anderson in the lineup and guys who for good reason are viewed as stars around the league or as viewed as difference making players and who had, been brought in with the idea of helping the Flames be a competitive team and they were unable to do so. And they were the guys who for good reason, Ryan Huska would put out there more so than other players because they have a long track record. And what we see now, like you mentioned Whitecloud, I was struck by just how often Ryan Strome talked up Zane Perek in his 20-game stint with the Flames at the end of the season. Like just how much there seemed to be a mutual respect between those two players.
Ontario boys.
Oh my goodness. Well, and also guys who are both know what it's like to be drafted high. Mm-hmm. And so I was really struck by that how by the end of the season it seemed to be. Wouldn't go as far as to say, becoming Zane Perek's team, but just a situation where it felt like, players were being more deferential to the younger guys on the team and viewing them as being more.
Think of the power play. Think about how many sweet dangles, for lack of a better term, Matvei Gridin was able to pull off in the last 20 games. And, I'll say this, you defer to your veterans early because, you're leaning on your veterans because it does feel like you don't want to screw up a kid's confidence by having him think for better or for worse, right or wrong, I am the reason our team lost this game and missed the playoffs. And especially they saw how thin the margin was last year. Like they missed the playoffs in 24-25 based on 2 bad games in St. Louis, but also any number of games that just got away from them because guys made mistakes at bad times. That's just what happened. This year, the mistakes all happened in October, and they could never completely dig out of it. And so by the time they sort of, I don't want to say threw in the towel, but by the time they got back from the Olympics and basically went, okay, here's the plan. We're going with the kids now. And you bring up Rustevich and play him almost every game. You bring up Gridden and play him every game. You bring Perek back from his AHL stint. You play him every game. And you move more and more towards first unit power play is Gridden, Perek, Frost, and various other kids. I think the challenge was like before in the previous era, it was Jerome's team. Then after it was Jerome's team, they weren't sure whose team it was, and then it became Johnny Matthews' team. And then now they're not here anymore. And then you have a couple of years where it's like, whose team is this? And I think if you're those kids, A, you're not sure whose team it is yet, and B, in the back of your mind, especially as you start getting your confidence going, if you're Perek, if you're Gridden, maybe if you're Wolf, if you're Coronado, you're thinking in the back of your head, why can't this be my team?
Yeah.
Can I be the guy here? Can I take charge? And based on what I saw, especially from numbers 19 and 92 down the stretch, last 15, 20 games, I'm not unconvinced I'm thinking it might be one of their teams pretty soon.
We're going to discuss a little bit more. There's a couple more topics I want to get to. Before we do, I just wanted to take a little detour here and let the folks know that this show and all of our back burner shows this spring are going to be brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers. And if you're looking to dominate off the ice as much as your team does on it, although teams are kind of maybe on the beaches now, but still, you can dominate on the beach too. You can check out the Toyota Tacoma. With its standard I-Force engine, the Tacoma delivers serious capability, including towing power of up to 6,400 pounds, making it the most powerful Tacoma ever. And whether you're hauling gear to the rink or heading out on a road trip for an away game, the Tacoma is ready for it. So you can experience power, capability, and convenience with the Toyota Tacoma. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer during Red Tag days on now through the end of May. So it's just good stuff. We want to, we got in the prospect show discussion. We can't talk about the Tacoma Rockets anymore They haven't been at the Tacoma Dome in quite some time. Have you been to the Tacoma Dome, Pike?
I've driven past it while stuck on traffic,
waiting to go to SeaTac, something like that. Yeah. But while you're driving an I-5, why not drive in a Toyota Tacoma?
I will point that we mentioned domination. Let me point out, this is Brett Kulak's last five of the last 6 seasons for Brett Kulak. 21 Cup final with Montreal, 22 conference final with Edmonton, 24 and 25 Cup finals with Edmonton, 2026 at very least conference final with Colorado. So Brett Kulak might be the new Corey Perry in that if he's on your team, odds are you're going to the Final Four at the very least. Don't pay attention to the 23 season when he was with Edmonton and they didn't do much of anything. I think they second round for them that year.
Brett Kulak is so dominant that he managed to make the Western Conference final while playing with Montreal. So, I mean,
that was the weird year. That was the bubble, right?
That was the bubble. That's right. It played
what a weird year.
They won the Clarence Campbell Bowl, I think. Isn't that what
it is? What the Western
the Montreal Canadiens.
It looks very weird when you're looking at when you're in the Hockey Hall of Fame, you're looking at the gallery of trophies in the Great Hall, and you're going through the plaque, and you're like, Montreal. All right, I guess. But I mean, it's better than season not played.
Send this off to Toyota Jack. This is from Flames Blue Jays. Mike G. Great promo reads. I'd buy a Tacoma based on that. Look at that. Doing my job. Fantastic stuff. Look at that. Look at that.
Flames Blue Jays.
Flames Blue Jays. Hey, that's a great screen name. Just straight to the point. Flames Blue Jays. Why are you here? Flames Blue Jays. What are you? Flames Blue Jays. Hey.
It sounds like a recipe for occasional glory.
I was going to say a recipe for a very strange fusion restaurant, but hey, that works too. Want to get into something from DFO today, but before we do, the Wranglers, the Calgary Wranglers, just making an announcement that they have re-signed forward Alex Gallant to another contract. They did not stipulate the term on the contract. They've also re-signed Kent Anderson of the University of Denver.
University of Denver captain.
That's right.
Captained them to a natty.
From Calgary as well.
As is his teammate, Carter King.
That's right. Alex Gallant, the Summerside PEI product, returns for his 8th season with the Flames AHL affiliate. He is one of very few players with remaining ties to the Stockton Heat, and he played for the Stockton Heat so long that he played for them in Stockton, came up to play with them in Calgary, and then returned for another year in Stockton before joining the Calgary Wranglers. So Alex Gallant re-signed by the Flames AHL affiliate. So this came out today over at DFO. This is from Anthony DeMarco, who says, sources, Flames willing to trade almost anyone on the roster this summer. This is from DFO. And of course, the lead image is one of Blake Coleman. And this is sort of the crux of it. Speaking with team sources earlier in the week, DFO was told that the Flames will be entertaining a similar thought process to the Uyghur, Kadri, Anderson deals this summer and are willing to just trade just about anyone on their roster. According to sources, the Flames are, quote, open to move any guys other than goaltender Dustin Wolf, forwards Matt Bay-Gridden and Matt Coronado, and defenseman Zane Parekh. And Pike, that leaves a lot of juicy names, sort of hanging on the laundry, I suppose. I mean, who do you think that maybe leaves up for interpretation?
I'm going to say that I love our colleagues at DFO. I don't know how newsy this is. This isn't really anything new because this is since November. This has sort of been the chatter around scouting circles, around management circles, that if you call the Flames, if you call about one of these 4 guys, they'll be like, that's not gonna be very short. It's not gonna be a very long conversation. I mean, long by Conroy standards, like not long by regular standards. But if the Flames are a team where analytics are sort of built into a lot of the things they do. The analytics team was one of the folks in the room that really banged on the table when they drafted Ethan Wittenbach, who ended up becoming the NCAA's leading scorer and a first-team All-American. You have to mention that NCAA leading scorer. So they have, because it's sort of embedded in everything, they have a price for pretty much everybody. And I would even go as far as say, I don't think it's so much that Wolf and Parekh and Gridden and Coronado would get you hung up on, but the price for those 4 gentlemen would probably be in the neighborhood of exorbitant, whereas everyone else would be okay, let's have a conversation. And I don't think they were in the mood to push Kadri out the door. I don't think they were in the mood to push Coronado or to push Uyghur out the door. They were kind of in a position where they had to move Anderson. And so I think they, as you mentioned, I think that was a very nice piece of business by them. But, they were listening to conversations on White Cloud, listening to conversations on Coleman. They had prices. You don't make the prices, they ain't moving the guys. And so as a result, I think they're continuing to ring the bell saying, okay, same rules apply, gents. If you think you can improve the Flames going forward and improve your team right now, give us a call. And so I'm really curious in terms of who garners some attention. I would say I saw some folks on social media kicking this idea around, and I don't hate it. Connor Zary feels to me like a buy low guy, because is he talented? Undoubtedly. Has he had just weird injury luck? I wouldn't even call him injury prone. I just think he gets hurt in weird ways. None of the injuries that he had were him doing anything to put himself in danger. It's just weird stuff happening to the poor kid. And so he is a guy that, with all the young pieces the Flames have coming up, is he going to be one of your centers of the future? I don't think so. Is he going to be a top 9 winger? Well, with the number of guys they have, you got Coronado and Gridden ahead of him. They're probably cemented in. Huberdeau, because of his contract, is probably here for the foreseeable future.
Next little while.
Yeah. And so, Honzik probably has a better toehold in on a checking line spot. Same with Zary. So if you're looking for, the right player for the right role, I am not wholly convinced that Connor Zary can meet his potential in Calgary. And that's not to say that anyone's done anything wrong. It's just circumstance. Some guys have just found their games and found their roles quicker than he has. And so if I'm a team and I'm going, I could probably make that guy work in my system, I think he could be someone who could be a really good fit on a lot of teams. I would say most teams, because he can do a lot of things really well. I'm just not sure if it'll happen here.
Well, and Anthony kind of segments the players. He mentions a number of players by name in this article, and he sort of lists a couple as having, high value. And he prefaces it all by saying, the fact is the free agent class this year is so weak. And and
most of the good players are going to be re-signed probably.
Exactly. And so if a team is looking to make some sort of addition to its roster, it may have no other choice. And some of the players who may be considered to have otherwise had, poor value or whatnot, may become sort of more attractive by default. And so, he talks about Blake Coleman and Morgan Frost being guys who would have value regardless, who have 1 year left on their contracts before they can become unrestricted free agents in both cases. And players who, can choose to re-sign if they wish, or, maybe better served going elsewhere. But that might be how the Flames are able to get out of a bit of a logjam here, because they do have a lot of players who you want to see in games, especially with Honzik needing to come back, healthy and playing a lot. Obviously, he's waivers exempt, which is a part of it, but I don't think they want to put him back in the AHL. And so,
no, I think he's put himself in that mix of, him, Brustevich, they have 4 guys Perek, AHL eligible next year. Don't think he'll be in the AHL. If he is, he won't be for very long. Gridden, AHL eligible, but considering he was your top offensive player the last month of the season, that I don't think that's likely to happen. Brustevich, he's probably the easiest guy to put back in the AHL because of how many defensemen they have, but maybe they carry 8 guys and they just keep them up. I don't know. There's a lot of the guys who are sort of, the next guys up are all kind of they already seem to have a spot eyed for them. And so, especially if you're the Flames and let's say, once the 2 retention slots open up on July 1st, you make a move involving Blake Coleman and you don't get an NHL winger back, which, I mean, that's an assumption because the last few trades they've made, they have gotten NHL bodies back in them. But I think there's a lot of different things they could do. And I think you mentioned this a year ago, in the summer last year, they have the Coronado they committed to. They went, Matt Coronado, we you're our guy.
We think you're good.
They did the same thing with the obscure player Dustin Wolf, a 7th rounder who's turned into something. But a lot of the guys like Zary, they signed a couple years just as let's see what you're doing. They did the same thing with Morgan Frost. They've done a few things with a few guys, sort of that bridge-ish deal in terms of, I think it's the team going, we're not sure what this looks like when this team becomes good, but we'll see if you want to be part of the solution. And we've heard that messaging from Ryan Huska. They want guys to be competitive. They want guys who want to be part of the solution. They want guys that, as the kids say, have that dog in them. And I think we've seen a lot of guys, Joel Farabee went from being a guy that, to be completely blunt, seemed like kind of a cap dump in the Philadelphia trade. It seemed like it was the Morgan Frost trade, and also here's Joel Farabee to make the math work. And instead it's, okay, Frost seems to, especially the last third of the season, seems to have a more defined role, more defined trajectory. And Farabee seems like the wish version of Blake Coleman, and maybe he become a full version of Blake Coleman given some time. And so I just think we're going to start seeing the team have to make decisions in terms of like, okay, the goaltending's kind of figured out for now. Like they have their tandem signed for a couple of years. Wolf assigned till time immemorial. Great. You figured out goaltending at least for a couple of years. Defense, you can kind of see the shape of things happening, but you also kind of go, okay, is White Cloud going to be here for a long time or for a good time? Is Ole Mata going to be a guy that you keep to bring guys along, or is he here until maybe you get a left shot defenseman this year's draft and you need to start figuring out a path to the NHL for them? Maybe they find Abram Weeb, pretty good college defenseman. At some point, if he is as good in the AHL as they hope he can be, you're going to need to open a path. So I think they have a lot of guys where they can hold on to guys for a little bit, and if teams don't meet their price, they're content to hold on to guys until they have to move them. Or if they have, I would say, you and I have had this conversation on and off air. I would say the Markstrom model. You have veterans that you're perfectly happy with. They're good players, good NHLers, give you value while they're on your roster. But if you have a Dustin Wolf knocking on the door and he needs NHL time, if someone meets your price, you're happy to move them too. And you're happy to move them to situations that they would like. I think we saw a similar trajectory with, okay, you have, Rasmus Anderson. A year ago, Rasmus Anderson said this in Exit Day that he could kind of figure out, see the young kids coming up, we're all right shots, and go, okay, I can kind of see how this might work out if I'm not a long-term piece here, if we don't figure out a fit for an extension. They did not figure out a fit for an extension, and so he was moved, and as a result, some young kids got larger roles on the right side. And so I don't think you need to squint too much. Again, you move out Mangiapane so that way you can have bigger roles for Coronado, Zary, those kind of guys. Like they have I think we could see a lot of those types of moves because it allows the team to, if not be competitive in the standings, be competitive in games. And you might be finishing bottom 10 for a year or two, but you're not getting blown out most nights.
It's going to be really interesting. The names that Anthony says Coleman and Frost, they've got value, depending on what Calgary decides to do. Zary, bit of a wild card. Don't really know what the relationship between team and player is at this point, what the player wants as far as being a center, being a winger, kind of compares him to Alex Newhook, albeit without having won a Stanley Cup. Joel Farabee and Yegor Sharangovich are sort of lumped together as well as being guys who, might have value if teams strike out in free agency. I don't really see the point in the Flames trading either of those guys at this point, but we'll see.
What would you get for them?
Nothing. Like very
you
little.
Get something, but
I don't think very much.
I think you'd rather. I think the Flames are in a situation where you can be a place where rather than hoping that you get something for Sharangovich and he figures it out somewhere else, maybe you can figure out while he's on your team. Yeah. You liked him enough to sign him to a hefty contract. Well, that means you probably like the player.
Scored 15 goals. I mean, it's like I think you can afford if he was scoring 5.
I mean, he scored 15 goals in the team that had a really bad power play too. So
well, and he wasn't on it. Yeah. That was one thing that I was kind of surprised they didn't try, at least at the end of the season, was a couple different looks. He didn't
he was second unit here and there, but he did enough to get looks, but he didn't do enough while he was on to stay.
Yeah, but I mean, Farabee scored 20. I mean, you can maybe see a little bit more there, but yeah, like I don't think they are in urgent need to move off of anybody per se. And maybe Coleman, just depending on what the back and forth is like there. But it's not like you're necessarily dying to get more draft picks at this point. You're happy with the number you have. Maybe you want to get more. I mean, obviously you want to get as many assets as you can. I mean, there are lots of people in the chat saying, What would it cost to move up from 6 to 3? What would it cost to move up from 6 to 2? We will have lots of time to discuss all of this.
The short answer is lots.
Lots.
It is. I will plug our friends at Puckpedia. They have this thing called the Perry draft pick calculator, pick value calculator. So if you go to puckpedia.com, it is in the bar at the top, and you can muck around with potential pick trades. And the short answer is moving up from 20 to 15 doesn't cost you very much. Moving up from 15 to 10 costs you a lot more. Moving up in the top 10 costs you a ton. And so if you're the Flames, like I've mucked around with this, if you're the Flames, you have those two. Let's just say hypothetically, Michael, that you're going, damn it, I want both rucks. Give me both rucks, or give me excuses. I don't want to give you excuses because I like you.
Sure.
I'm going to give you both rucks. So using the Perry puck value calculator, you can use the Flames' two earliest second rounders, package them together, and get into the mid 20s pretty easily. The pick value is about the same. It makes it a lot harder to move up past there, though. So I think this is the type of draft where we might see a team fall in love with a player that is in one of those ledges and go, screw it, I'll give you a second. So I also think this is the year where, if you look at you and I've had this discussion, the Flames are good at drafting and have drafted a lot of players. They have made 24 picks over the last 3 years, and many of them are very good hockey players, to the point where I don't think they have the throughput in their developmental system to onboard all the players they have. I think that was one of the things that contributed to them trading Jacob Battaglia for an older player, because they have a logjam of players in different age groups. And so you'll kind of want to smooth it out. If you're the Flames, you probably have enough 26 picks, more than enough 26 picks. You probably feel okay about the number of 27 picks you have too. But if you're thinking maybe you're starting to move up out of the basement in the next year or two, the first or second year in Scotia Place, maybe you want to see if you can get a extra second, extra first, extra third in 27, 28, 29. That way, maybe there's a Morgan Frost type, maybe not a guy that you want to build your team around, but a guy you're like, damn, I need that guy will give us 3 good lines so we can go at people in the playoffs. Yeah, that's right. You're using the word playoffs. It'll happen at some point.
It will.
So like having picks doesn't mean that you use the picks as picks. They're assets. And if you have all your assets sort of lumped in one year, it kind of limits what you can do. If you spread them out a bit, you can do a lot of different things. And it sounds like, based on what Anthony's hearing, based on what I'm hearing, based on what other colleagues of mine are hearing in and around the Flames, around the NHL, Flames are open to doing a lot of things, as long as it doesn't involve one of those 4 guys.
It's exciting. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to delve more into what the Flames may or may not do. Check back probably every couple weeks or so. We're going to arrange. We're aiming for a couple Fridays from now for the next time that we reconvene here on the Back Burner Show. You can expect to see some big names. We're gonna go as high as we can. So tune in. Keep your notifications on. One more time, thank you to the folks over at the Prairie Toyota Dealers for their support of these Flames prospect shows. Means a lot. And once again, Rad Tag Days on now through the end of May over on their Tacomas, which are just, once again, just terrific trucks.
You want your vehicles to dominate the road and the terrain the way Brett Kulak dominates the playoffs.
Absolutely. So head on over there. And once again, my name is Mike Gould. Hit the mic. Made it the whole show without doing that.
You're a hand talker.
So close. Unbelievable. Here with our buddy Ryan Pike and our producer Jack here in studio. Just the dream team. We thank you all for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you to Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff for kicking this spring's slate of shows off with a bang. Enjoy the conference finals. They'll probably be over the next time you join us again here on Flames Nation's Spring Prospect Show, The Back Burner.